to represent the interests of the people of Machakos. I find that letter gross in terms of its seriousness or lack of seriousness. I find it belittling of the institution of the Senate. And so members, that's where we are. The governor, I've been told by the sergeant-at-arms, is not within the presence of this assembly. We have received that letter as condescending as it is. We must now pronounce ourselves. Now, I don't know whether the senator for Machakos wants to go first, but let's allow the members of the committee in terms of just dealing with that letter and the way forward. We start with Senator Olekina from Narok.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think it's important because we're having this session with counterparts from the assemblies, just for them to be able to understand the procedures. This committee sitting, it's given powers by the Constitution. Article 125 give it the same powers as a high court to call a witness. We have called a witness, and when we call this witness to come, there are certain prerequisites, certain requirements that he had to fulfill. So, Mr. Chairman, it will be important for us to know when the invite was sent out, whether from the Secretariat the witness has submitted the affidavits, or rather the financial statements which he was asked to submit, and all the documentation evidence. If he has not, number 3, within the time stipulated. Number 3, which is very, very crucial, is that we cannot entertain such juvenile characteristics. You cannot write here. The last time we had Governor Mutua appear before our committee, he attempted to force the auditors to accept that he had fulfilled all the requirements. And he said he had written to them. We gave him up to 6 p.m. the next day to submit a letter, which he never submitted. So I think, Mr. Chairman, with such kind of behavior, the only thing we can do is, first of all, to use our Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. We can also use the power in terms of penalizing this witness who has failed to appear. The Public Audit Act is also very, very clear. We have done so with other counties like Nairobi and Kwale. And the fact that he sent that letter yesterday, and he now alleges that the reason why, because in fact if you listen to the content of that letter, it is not that he has other engagements which are important for the county. The only thing is that he's afraid of being accountable for the people of Machakos. And maybe because this is the entire Ukambani area, he feel like my colleague sitting here, who is a very competent lawyer and also a very competent distinguished senator, will come and really embarrass him. So I think, Mr. Chairman, we cannot let this slide away. And my position, and I hope that it will be adopted by the committee, is 1, is to issue immediate summons. Number 2, we could even issue summons for him to appear tomorrow. And number 2, I think we cannot just let him go like that. We must surcharge him for wasting our time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Chair. I think it is really unfortunate because we have invited the governor for Machakos quite a while ago. For him to have responded yesterday, it's really, really unfortunate because it clearly shows that he's really disrespectful to the House of Senate. Secondly, the issues he has raised in that letter regarding the political environment and people being mobilized, I mean, the content of the letter in itself, it's really unwarranted. It's really disrespectful to the House of Senate and also to the senator who is representing the people of Machakos. Chair, I think we cannot accept that. And the law is very clear in terms of what is required if a governor refuses to appear before the committee. My concern is whether he likes to appear in Nairobi or Kitui or wherever, he must appear before the Senate and answer and be accountable for what he's doing for people of Machakos. Now, as my colleague Senator Olekina has said, my opinion is we must immediately give him a summon, and the next sitting should be held in Machakos, not in Nairobi. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Dr. Agnes Zani.
Thank you, Chair. And just to go back to your preliminary comments and the shock you got, and when you looked back at the letter, that letter was written in July, did you say? And the clerk read out that response which was sent out yesterday. I think maybe as a committee, it's important also to set deadlines for the responses from the governors, that some sort of procedure or principle be put into place, that these letters need to be responded to earlier. I've come in, I've seen the effort that has been made in constituting this meeting, and everybody is ready. The whole of the country is looking forward. So we don't want to set this sort of precedent. One, we must make it very clear that it's unacceptable. But two, it's always better just to say in advance, you know, where you have validity and in good time. So I think it's important to have a set date. Within a week of receiving the letter from this committee, the governor should be able to reply. Chair, you remember when we went to Uasin Gishu County? That was the first county Senate Mashinani that we did. And the governor was forthright, the governor was enthusiastic, the governor actually came himself in his own county. And I remember I turned up for that session as well as a friend of the committee at that time. And it was just a mutual exchange. People were able to look through the audit reports. He was able to respond. He was able to say where he thought the gaps were. He was able to say, I thought this is the way it should be done. I'm happy now. You've even helped me to do my work even better. And it ended very well. And that set a precedent for the Senate Mashinani sessions that we expected to have with governors. There's nothing that a governor does that is done in secret in terms of audit and in terms of the resources. The resources are publicly given. Yesterday, the resources were publicly given. And therefore, when it comes to accounting, it should be just fine to account for those resources publicly, either in a neighboring county or in your county or in Nairobi. So I think this is very, very disappointing. The members who are here were looking forward to this and being able to input into what has happened and to be able to look through the accounts, to be able to look through the audit accounts, and to be able to share the experiences and look for a way forward as a county. As you know, Senate is there for the interest of the counties, and this particular committee specifically deals with that. So I think as a friend of the committee, it's really disappointing. I think that letter is a mixed letter. Different excuses. It gives all the excuses in the world. Gives just general excuses, it gives some specific ones. So you can see it's just coming up with one or two things to say, I'm not there, I didn't want to be there, and I can't be there. And I think we need to find ways and means to preempt and to avoid such a situation in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Senator Professor Ongeri.
Chair, I speak with a heavy heart. This is an appointed session, duly gazetted. The Senate will be sitting in Kitui. It's as if this Senate was sitting in Nairobi. For Senate to be able to arrange its programs, this agenda was heavily discussed at the Senate Business Committee, and the decision arrived at the type of committees that will be engaging in their business in Kitui, sitting as Senate. And I want to believe that the governor of Machakos was duly informed. So my first question is, can the clerk confirm that indeed the letter of invitation was done well within the time specified of giving notice for him to appear before us? If the answer is in the affirmative, that he was indeed summoned to appear before this committee in good time, and he had not at any moment indicated that he was going to have international engagements because I want to believe that as a former Minister for Foreign Affairs, that these engagements don't just appear out of the blue. The global engagements are engagements that had been deliberately arranged well out in time. I was almost getting persuaded that if it was a global arrangement, global initiatives coming to help the county of Machakos, that might have been a mitigating factor. But alas, the second decision, the second explanation has demolished that premise I almost wanted to take as a mitigation. And I see flying objects in the second proposition. And these are flying objects in the name of politics. Now, we must accept that there will be political competition, whether it's in the morning or midday or evening or midnight, they will always be there, wherever you are. These are constant objects all the time. And if you agree to stay in that competition, then you must accept these flying objects to hit you one way or the other. And I know sometimes I'm hit left, right, center, but I don't lose my balance. So I think we've lost the balance here. And I don't like anybody disregarding properly instituted invitation to appear before a Senate committee, and more so a Public Accounts Committee. One of the reasons why I'm getting a little unhappy is that we're dealing with public resources. And I would have expected the governor of Machakos to acquit himself in this population of Machakos, of Kitui, and the neighboring Makueni and the neighboring counties, that indeed his conduct in the management of the affairs of Machakos have been above board. But he has missed that opportunity, and I think consequentially, without bringing in all other extras, consequentially, he has failed to appear. And I think we apply the sanctions that normally apply when an invitee to this committee fails to come. I think we apply those sanctions, Chair. Thank you. I've taken a little longer, but I thought I should lay the foundation why I should say so.
Thank you, Professor. That's very useful. Senator Millicent Omanga.
Chair, I think the governor is just being vexatious and mischievous. And I think Senator Olekina has put it clear, Article 125, because Chair, if you remember, this is not the first time the governor is trying to be canny and mischievous. The last time he was in the committee, he actually spent 1 hour or 30 minutes and excused himself that he was going to Kilifi, and there was some contract he was going to sign with some donors who are coming to Machakos County. We actually rescheduled, and he came again. And when he came, he was not able to produce the documents because we told him, yes, you can leave, you can go and sign the contract because it was for the benefit of the people of Machakos. But when he came back, Mr. Chair, he was not able to give us those contracts or proof to show that actually the leave we gave him, he had really gone to sign a contract. He started long stories and just being mischievous. And from the audit report, Mr. Chair, you can see actually the governor is even spending outside. If miss, you can see actually he is not disclosing documents of projects which he's doing with public funds. You can actually see he's even spending money without approval of a county assembly. He's just doing his own things, his own, I'll call it private things, with public money. This is public funds, and there is no problem when the public is actually there to witness how their money is being spent. Chair, you know, we've been going to counties. We were in Kwale the other day, we were in Mombasa, and we were in their own county assembly, and the public was invited to go through the sessions. We actually, there's a time we went to Samburu County where we did the hearings in a public baraza, and the governor was cooperative, and he was able to give his responses. So I think this is mischievous, and I think my colleagues have summarized. Chair, we have to be firm, because this is public money and not his own pocket money. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator Omanga. Senator for Machakos, what is going on in Machakos County? Yesterday, we sat in this chamber from 2:30 to 9 p.m. to approve the county allocation of revenue. And the comments from all the senators was, yes, senators now approved for counties to receive funds. And if I recall the numbers that were going to Machakos, in the previous financial year, Machakos received 8.3 billion Kenya shillings. In this current financial year, Machakos is going to receive 7.7 billion of the equitable share. It means that Machakos has lost about 600 million. And that loss is as a result of the fiduciary or fiscal responsibility measure. Machakos is losing 600 million because the formula indicates that that county is not fiscally responsible. Now, I don't know what you have to say for you as a senator representing a county that is losing 600 million, and your neighbor, Narok, is gaining 1.9 billion. So is this what the people of Machakos deserve, Senator Kabaka?
Thank you, Chair, for this important committee. I join my colleagues in articulating the same ideals that the Senate as an institution must be respected. That is number one. No one is above the law, not even the President of the Republic. But at times in Africa, through the historical genesis, we do appreciate that there are some people who are kings and who are deemed to be demigods. And it has come the time here that certain governors are demigods. They think they should not be questioned. And in the chain of those demigods is the governor of Machakos, Dr. Alfred Mutua. He thinks he's above the law. He thinks he's well connected. He thinks he can do anything to run away with the billions which have been lost in Machakos County. Other than being a lawyer for around 30 years, I've done finance. If you check my credentials, you find that I've done accounts, CPA, I've done finance, actually to the level of a PhD now. I'm finishing my paper. And I don't need an accountant to render any interpretation opinions on accounts. I've checked since the inception of the devolution, even when I was not the senator of Machakos. I think sometime from September 2013, financial account 2013, 2014, 2014, 2015, 2015, 2016, 2016, 2017, now what we are looking, 2017, 2018. And of course, for us senators, I know our accounts will come out around February next year. That will be our accounts affecting our period. In all those, and I'm sure Mr. Chairman and other members have looked into these accounts, you find that, and I've seen a table of tabulations where you are showing county and county, the county names, the periods, the years, financial years, where you are showing disclaimer, adverse, qualified. If you check Machakos, it is number 22 here. Throughout, so that people won't read mischievous malice. It is auditor's reports, opinion, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. And all those disclaimers, and they were observed by Senator Olekina. I remember the last time when the governor came around, you did raise that issue. How comes the Machakos counties, have, Auditor General's opinion, disclaimer opinion throughout? What does that mean? Of course, we know the cause implication of the cause effect to that. It shows that the stewardship of Machakos is wanting. I've done computations with my calculator. I sat sometime from 10 to 4 p.m. in my house before I went to Musia FM, for those who listen, those Kamba vernacular sometime, and I didn't mention. I remember even my wife coming asking me, why are you seated late? I said, as a lawyer, I have to go with the facts. You don't talk out of it for the sake of it, because you may be taken to court, though I know I'm privileged here, but it's good also on a humanistic term to speak the truth, nothing but the truth, just like we took the oath. I have realized that Machakos, and I invite all the members in this country, and also our counterparts in Machakos and in Kitui and elsewhere in Makueni. You go to the website of Auditor General, open specifically the one for Machakos, you read throughout casually, and you do some rough estimate. You find Machakos has lost a lot of billions of shillings, billions, not millions, billions of shillings. My heart is very heavy. I'm very sad as a senator of Machakos, because again, I have even to do the job for the former senator, who was, who was the senator then, because these accounts were never interrogated, and this is the high time we are calling the governor of Machakos to come and highlight, like Professor Ongeri, Senator said, let him come and answer the question. If he's going to answer the question to the satisfaction of this committee, so be it. But I'm telling you, come heaven and earth, the senator of the governor of Machakos will not be in a position to answer the auditor's report as they are. So he's very clever, very cunning. He's a master of PR. That is his profession. All right? And I wrote something this morning to my friend, chairman, when I saw that letter. I did say that Governor Mutua may never appear before your committee. He's a man who played theatrics, trying to postpone matters. Even when matters touching Machakos are in court, the guy never attends, keeps on postponing them until we find a weak link, to have the matter settled. But that would be very sad for Machakos. And for him to impute, political improper character on my behalf, on my part, that I've arranged goons or that kind of thing, I don't know. Here I am, I'm seated. I came last night, we were with you until midnight. Where are the goons he's saying? So he's trying to fabricate lies. And even matters which are in court, of which this Senate doesn't have jurisdiction. Absolutely. They have nothing to do with the auditor's query. We are just simply telling him to become gentleman, let him come as a governor of Machakos and answer the questions of the auditor. Last but not least, let me finish. Last but not least, Senator Olekina, my friend, we know this Senate has what I call reserve funds or powers, which includes, among others, what Olekina said, Senator here. You summon the guy or the governor. Number two, you can even decide to stop the funds, which was passed yesterday, rolling to Machakos. We may not eat the money if the money is going to be misappropriated. Somebody who is not accountable. What's the point of releasing the money? We can stop it until he behaves. All right? Lastly, you can, do the worst. Allow the document to be debated at the Senate plenary, and the Senate definitely will recommend the same to go to the relevant government agencies for some remedies like investigation and prosecution. That's it. Because I will tell you, and I know the law, if the Senate will not do what we are supposed to do, me as a citizen of Kenya, I'm going to take upon myself and craft criminal charges against Mutua and prefer private prosecution until the DPP comes to take over the prosecution. Because, the people of this citizen are more important than the leaders. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. You're accused of mobilizing goons to embarrass the governor. Where are the goons that
I don't know. The members of public are here.
Because what I see here are honorable members of Assembly from Kitui, from Makueni, I see no goons around, and it is not for the governor to decide whether we are going to have an objective sitting or not. It is for the chair, who represents the speaker, to determine the objectivity of the sitting. So the governor is completely out of order by indicating that we cannot have an objective sitting because the senator from Machakos is here. You have a duty, you have been elected by the same people who elected the governor. So it is not for the governor to dictate to the chair the objectivity of any sitting. Now, members, we have pronounced ourselves very clearly. So please, let's then close so that we do the way forward. Senator Olekina, then, or Professor, you're on a point of order?
Yes, please.
Professor?
Let's not go out of this room with a feeling that this committee allows goons to come during their sittings. I think we must correct that impression, that we, at no time in my sitting in this committee, have we ever witnessed from any quarter the type of goons that are being described in that letter.
Unless
And
the
I
governor
think we
is the
must
one who
dispense
wanted to come with goons. Yeah. Thank you, Professor. That's a very good indicator.
Just
Senator Olekina.
on a quick one. I mean, just after listening to my good friend, the distinguished senator from Machakos, I feel like looking at all the reports for the last 3 or 4 financial years, the issues the auditors have raised have been the issue of a limitation of scope, meaning when this governor is asked to produce documents, he does not produce those documents. There are so many stalled projects, and I know there are some people who committed suicide in Machakos when they were not paid their money. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request that the way forward is for us to engage our colleague from ESCC and maybe even move and request this committee to adopt this report as is, you know, so that we don't waste time. We are limited in time. We have so many other counties that we want to be able to proceed and give the people of, you know, that county, or rather the governor of that county, an opportunity to mitigate the issues raised by the auditors. But since this governor has completely shown that he does not want us to mitigate, I think the issue is, 1, we summon him. Number 2, I think we adopt the report as is. And then number 3, maybe you write to, I think Article 125 gives you that power, gives you the same powers as a High Court judge. And I think this committee pronounce itself and direct ESCC, I don't know whether direct is the right word, but maybe recommend really immediate prosecution, because there's really nothing else that we can do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, members. I've listened very carefully to all the submissions of members, and all the submissions, the key word is disappointment, and the key word is that the governor from Machakos is disrespectful of the institution of the Senate. Members of the County Assembly, you probably are familiar with this situation, because when we discussed with you yesterday, you told us that this is a common feature. You call CECs and you call chief officers and they do not appear. This does not happen very frequently in the Senate. Indeed, Machakos County has made a reputation of either appearing and not satisfying this committee, as Senator Omanga indicated, or not appearing, as has happened today. A few issues that then we will need to consider as we go forward. All sorts of adjectives have been used to describe this letter: irrelevant, frivolous, condescending, disrespectful, irresponsible, and even unconstitutional, because it limits and it minimizes the role of the senator. The senator has a duty to oversight and also to represent the interests of the Machakos County. And so we cannot accept a situation where a governor wants us to discuss the accounts of a county in the absence of the senator. That is unconstitutional. Number 2, it is not for the governor to determine the manner in which the proceedings of this committee shall be undertaken. It is not for the governor to determine that the presence or absence of certain persons in this committee shall minimize the objectivity of this committee. As has been stated by Professor Ongeri, this committee has dealt with 46 other counties. And all along, we have been objective, we have been rational, We have not allowed goons, and even the senators who have come in as friends of the committee, the same way Senator Dr. Zani is here and Senator Kabaka is here, have conducted themselves in the most civil manner. So governors cannot dictate to the Senate the manner in which they're going to conduct their sittings. Number three, to repeat, we sat in this chamber up to 9 p.m. yesterday. We took almost 6 votes to ensure that counties get resources through the county allocation of revenue. And I've already indicated that Machakos County is getting 7.7 billion, 600 million less than the prior year, because the county government of Machakos is fiscally irresponsible. That is why it is losing. It is not meeting its own source revenue targets. Now, Senator Kabaka, you have to go back to Machakos and explain to the residents of Machakos why you as a senator allocated 600 million less. And it is not because of you as a senator, it is because of the governor and the manner in which he's running the affairs of Machakos County. Sometimes, when I look at some of the proposals that have been put to the nation on constitutional reforms, sometimes I sympathize with certain sections of what Ekuru Okot has put to the nation. Ekuru Okot proposes to amend Article 157 that talks about the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I know this is very contentious. And I know that it might not be the right position. But the habits and the actions of people like the governor for Machakos sometimes convince me that we need to give certain thought to that amendment of Article 157. Because that initiative proposes to amend Article 157 and says that the DPP shall use both general financial audit findings from the Auditor General as a first piece of evidence in all theft cases and in no value for money cases. He proposes that the DPP shall prosecute all public and state officers responsible for all adverse audit findings within 60 days of audit completion. And he also proposes that the DPP shall write to all officers responsible for adverse audit findings, demanding they leave office within 30 days. You know, if sometimes you get good intentions packaged in, with other poisonous things, sometimes I think that some of these amendments to Article 157 deserve some merit, despite the poison included in other aspects of that particular bill. But when you look at the actions of the governor for Machakos, sometimes you get convinced that we probably should just adopt all audit findings. Now, how do we move forward? Article 125 gives the Senate the power to call for evidence. And it says that either House of Parliament has the power to summon any person to appear before it for the purpose of giving evidence or providing information. Indeed, the Senate sent out a notice on 28th of June 2019. Our invitation to Machakos was not sent yesterday. It was sent on 28th of June 2019. It was followed by a letter in June. We're in the month of September. And the governor, in his version of courtesy, decides to send a letter that was received by the Senate yesterday, last night. The Senate is here on public resources. We cannot tell the nation that we came for Senate Mashinani in Ukambani, and then all the governors for Ukambani have run away. Yesterday, we excused the governor for Kitui. She gave reasons, which I personally don't find satisfactory, that she was busy hosting the Senate. It is a county assembly that is hosting the Senate. It is not the governor hosting the Senate. Now, the governor for Machakos, a critical region in Ukambani, gives us all these frivolous reasons. The governor for Makueni had initially indicated that he was traveling to the United States, and we insisted he must appear. And thankfully, the governor for Makueni has confirmed he'll appear before us. Why would the Senate come to the Ukambani region and all the governors choose to stay away? And then the governor for Machakos gives us unsolicited advice that he prefers that we meet him in Nairobi. What does he have to hide? Why can't he accept to be questioned by the Senate in Ukambani, in Kitui, even if it was not in Machakos? So we find some of these actions really condescending and really out of order. How then do we proceed? I want, therefore, to refer to the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, particularly Section 19. And for avoidance of doubt, Section 19 of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act deals with the procedure if a witness fails to appear. And it says, where a witness summoned does not appear, or appears but fails to satisfy the relevant House of Parliament or committee, the relevant House or committee may impose upon the witness such fine not exceeding 500,000 shillings, having regard to the witness' condition in life and all the circumstances of the case. We have a precedent. Kwale, we fined. Nairobi, we fined. And I think the Lands Committee also imposed a fine on another state officer, the Trade Committee. Therefore, this committee pronounces itself in this particular manner, that the governor for Machakos, having failed to appear and having not given us a satisfactory reason as to why he should not appear before this committee
Chairman,
fines the governor an amount.
I don't want you to finish that statement. I'm afraid. We are going to be playing to the game theory of this guy. Let me, Chairman, before you roll. If we are going to give, a monetary value to him, that is a slap. That's a joke. Unless say something further.
I think we need to deal with the law as it is. We need to deal with the law as it is. Let's first deal with the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, because we also need to demonstrate to the members of the County Assembly. If the CECs and CEOs disrespect them, they have a recourse to the law.
Just on a point of order, Chair.
Senator Lekina, make it brief.
And I think my point of order has come in as a result of the interception by my colleague. My thinking and reading of Section 19 of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges, that action will result after the summons. So the first thing that I'd like to understand, Mr. Chairman, is whether it was an invitation or a summon. I would plead with you that once we've looked at that, if it wasn't the summon, then we do issue summons for him to appear here tomorrow. We can seek leave from the Speaker for us to be able to have him. If he fails to appear tomorrow, then we now apply the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. That's number one. Number two, on the issue of my colleague, that in his service punitive, he doesn't pay that money from the kitty of the county government. He pays it from his own money. And most importantly, it will go in his record. And ESCC will have a very good time finding out where this 500,000 has come from. It will follow through. And I think maybe as you're proceeding further in terms of your orders, I would like, and I would beseech you to look at the interpretation of that act. Sure. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Manga and members, let's make it brief so that we can have a way forward.
Maybe, Chair, my interjection was maybe if we summon him, let's do it in Machakos County Assembly, where even the public and the people of Machakos would witness the proceedings and how their money has been spent.
The institution of Parliament, Professor, I see you are seeking intervention. Brief one.
Yeah, we have precedents as set. When we went to Mombasa, the governor of Mombasa was very busy, and he gave us a very short notice. But he honored his appearance, and we appreciated why he was busy. And we accepted, and he appeared. We carried the investigations and the interrogation of the public accounts, and we agreed we'll meet again in Mombasa at the same time. I said earlier, Chair, this is an appointed session within the Ukambani region. And the reason why it was an appointed session is to give the opportunity for the people of this region to witness and see how the public resources allocated to this region are being spent. Therefore, the first interested parties will be people of this region. Therefore, alongside of the measures you want to take, Chair, I would like to opine that we issue out summons, and I will further suggest that those summons should be within Ukambani region, because the original intention is for the people of this region to be seized of the matter. Once he appears after the summons, then we apply those sanctions and subsequent actions that may follow after interrogating the report. Because we don't make it as a final action, but we issue summons at a particular place within the region. I'm now dissuaded that Nairobi is not the right place, because if Nairobi is within the proximity of Machakos, and I think if the senator has the capacity to organize goons, it would be a much better place for him to organize the goons there. So let's put it right in the home where he comes from. And because they're in charge of that place, let's see where the goons are coming from. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Professor, and members. I might then, with a citation, vacate my earlier radical view. I was going to impose the provisions of Section 19 of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. I will revise my orders as follows. The committee shall issue summons to the governor for Machakos to appear before this committee. The venue of that appearance shall be Machakos County Assembly. The date of that appearance shall be Monday, the 30th of September. If the governor fails to appear before this committee, for whatever reason, we shall impose the provisions of Section 19, which is not limited to a fine. It also includes the Senate ordering the arrest of a person who fails to appear before it. So the date of next appearance of the governor is Monday, the 30th of September, and it is not an invitation, it is a summon. Kwa Kiswahili tunasema sio tafadhali, ni lazima. And if he fails to appear, we shall impose the sanctions that are available to us in the law, in the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act. Let me also mention that this committee has a report that is going to the House with regard to Machakos County for the prior financial years. As has been stated by Senator Kabaka, in 2013-14, Machakos received a disclaimer. In 2014-15, Machakos received a disclaimer. In 2015-16, Machakos received a disclaimer. In 2016-17, Machakos received a disclaimer. The Public Finance Management Act says that a county that constantly gets a disclaimer of opinion, the CS for Treasury is given the space to stop funds to go to the county. The question is, do we want the residents of Machakos to suffer because of the irresponsibility of a governor and his ruling clique and elite? Do we want to stop funds that would finance the health sector, water, roads, and other critical services in Machakos? And when we considered that, and members, you do recall, we have made a recommendation to the House that a governor who gets 4 disclaimers in a row is not fit to hold public office. And we shall be bringing to the Senate, to the plenary, a recommendation that the governor for Machakos, on account of his 4 disclaimers in a row for 4 years, is therefore not fit to hold public office. And I can assure the people of Machakos, the wheels of justice grind slowly, but they grind surely. You might think that you will get away with some of the misdemeanors while you had the power and privilege and a flag flying on your car, but I can tell you the law will catch up with you at some point in time. And I want to encourage the governor for Machakos not to take these things lightly. He's a man with serious personal ambitions, but if the Senate pronounces itself that a person is not fit to hold public office, I can tell you the Senate is not an idle institution. Finally, I want to probably address one other issue that is currently in the public domain. I'm aware, and it is going on right now, that the governor of Kiambu, Governor Waititu, the governor of Samburu, Governor Lenol Kulal, have lodged an appeal to challenge the orders from the High Court that directed them to step aside and not to access office. Last week, this committee was meant to listen to the county government of Samburu. We made a decision not to listen to the governor of Samburu because the High Court had issued orders asking him not to step in his office and asking him technically to step aside. Our view is that Governor Waititu and Governor Lenol Kulal are technically out of office. And we are not going to treat them. We are not going to consider them. Any other governor who will be charged, and any other governor where orders will be issued by the judiciary that they stay out of office, this Senate is bound to respect the rule of law. And we shall abide by the rulings of the judiciary in those issues. Obviously, there are concerns around the implementation of certain orders, particularly the orders by, or the opinion of Justice Mumbi Ngugi on how state officers are supposed to be treated once charged. Even members of the Assembly, members of the Senate are state officers. We need to have a proper ruling, and we have asked the Speaker of the Senate to guide us. How do we deal with other state officers who have been charged? If a member of the County Assembly has been charged, do they step aside? And if they step aside, who will represent the people that elected that member? Would a senator step aside? If a governor orders were issued and asked to step aside, how do we deal with that? So we need a decision that will apply not just to governors, but will apply to all state officers. Unless and until the Court of Appeal rules on the matter of Lenol Kulal and the matter of Waititu, the position of the Senate and the position of Parliament is that we shall not treat them as governors of their respective counties. And that is the position of the Senate, and that is what we affirmed last week. Let me conclude by thanking all the honorable members who are present.
Chair, just on a point of order before you conclude. I think it would be important for maybe this committee to consider adopting the reports of those governors who have now been sent out. You know, Article 226, subsection 5 of the Constitution, we let that article deal with them in the sense that they have misappropriated funds. In fact, I was of the view that even in today's sitting, since we were supposed to be considering 3 financial years for Machakos County, which were disclaimer, I think for us not to waste time, we simply adopt the reports as they were, you know, and then now on the 30th of September, we deal with the current financial year. But on the other issue, I think all those governors who have now been barred from accessing their offices, and since this committee has already pronounced themselves, so that we don't waste time in piling reports from the Auditor General, I think we may consider just adopting those reports as they were, so that we can be able to leapfrog. So I don't know what your take is on that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Lekina. My experience and my personal view is that the ruling elite must also be held accountable. There are people who might want to play in our hands by accepting the fact that fine, Senate can adopt the reports and that will be the end of it. The governor must appear before the Senate. The governor and his team must also appear before the County Assembly of Machakos. They cannot run away from that. And whether we are adopting the reports as they are, the governor must appear. That is a constitutional duty. When he sought office, he knew that at some point he would be required to account. I want to request the EACC represented here. Please take special interest in the books of Machakos County. When the Auditor General says that they've issued a disclaimer for 4 years in a row, and I want the Auditor General just to explain to us what a disclaimer means. Because governors have this habit of going to the villages and making a disclaimer sound like it is a fruitcake, it is a beautiful thing. Auditor General, what is a disclaimer in either in English or in Swahili, a language that the people of Machakos can understand?
Thank you, Chair. A disclaimer in this case in a language that the people of Machakos can understand is that the Auditor General is unable to give an opinion on the financial statements presented by the Governor on the grounds that the records underlying which support the financial statements are not available. Number two is where the scope has been limited to the extent that the auditor cannot be able to get information in support of the financial statements. Thank you, Chair.
I didn't want you to speak accounting language. Can you repeat what you have said in Swahili?
Bwana Mwenyekiti, opinion ya disclaimer ni kwamba mkaguzi wa vitabu vya hesabu kando na kwamba amejaribu kubaini I don't know what you call accuracy, Chairman, in Kiswahili maybe usawa wa hesabu zilizokabiliwa kwa mkaguzi wa vitabu, ni kwamba mkaguzi wa vitabu hawezi kuangalia vile ile financial statements zina support. Inaonekana kwamba hawezi kabisa kufanya kazi yake kwa sababu governor hajampatia taarifa kamili ya uwezekano wa kufanya kazi yake, Bwana Chairman.
Son of Ramoya, I know you are a man of Nairobi's Eastlands, yeah. And you're trying to speak like a man from Mombasa. And now you are failing terribly in that effort. You have a written description of a disclaimer in Swahili. I want you to read that. And if you can't read it as it is, then I'll allow you to say it in Sheng, because I want the people of Kitui to understand, the people of Machakos to understand why for 4 years you have given a disclaimer and what that means. So that when we conclude that the governor is not fit to hold public office, isiwe ni kama ni fitina, isiwe ni maneno ya siasa, iwe something that is scientific and that is based on the evidence that has been produced to this committee and to the Senate. We are not going to, get to the level where we are playing politics with governors. We might even be personal friends, but when it comes to the work of accountability and the work of running public resources, there cannot be friendship. Indeed, the president himself has said that hakuna urafiki kwa hii maneno. Kama jamaa amepotea na mali ya umma, then it is this Senate to recommend what needs to be done. Senator Omanga.
Chair, labda mwanadarati, the auditor.
Now that sounds like a drug addict.
No. What?
I also know you came from the rough side of Nairobi.
Mwana?
Amesema mwana hadarati?
Oh.
Chair, labda auditor ungemwambia aseme alama kama ingekuwa ni darasa ama ni alama gani mtu anapata tunajua kwa examination yetu kuna A, B, C, D na E ndio ya mwisho. Sasa kwa alama hiyo kutoka A, mwanafunzi ambaye anapata A na paka kwa A, ni alama gani amepata from A to E, the grading system.
Okay, asante sana. Kutoka kwa A mpaka D, hizo ni 4. Huyo mwanafunzi amepata alama ya D, ambayo ndio mbaya zaidi.
Mbaya zaidi?
Yes.
Kwa
tukiendelea Chairman,
for 4 years.
Yes.
D for 4 years.
Yes. Tukiendelea Chairman, manake sasa nimepata definition kamili ya Kiswahili. Ni kwamba tunaita hati mbaya. Hati mbaya, bwana mwenyekiti. Hati mbaya. Na hati mbaya hutolewa wakati mkaguzi anapokuwa ameshindwa kupata vielelezo sahihi vinavyotoa ushahidi wa kutosha ili kupata msingi wa maoni ya ukaguzi. Na mkaguzi amejiridhisha kuwa makosa ambayo hayatogundua yatakuwa makubwa na yameathiri maneno mengi ya taarifa ya fedha. Bwana mwenyekiti, I hope I'm clear now, Chairman.
No, you are clear. Ngeli ya kivi imeingia sawa kabisa.
Thank you very much.
Senator Olekina, then Senator Kabaka.
Nikijaribu kuongea Kiswahili chile ambacho najua tutasikia wenyewe, ni kusema kwamba huyu jamaa ameonesha sinema, hajafanya kazi yoyote. Kindu kidhoku pi. Unaona? Kwa sababu akisema, ukiangalia hapa, ya kwanza kwamba kulikuwa na hela ambaye ni milioni 51 ya Impress, ambaye tangu mwaka wa 1216 hiyo pesa haijai sasawanishwa kurudishwa. So ni kwamba gavana huyu wa Machakos ni mtu ambaye anapenda sinema sana, anasema amefanya hii na hajafanya. Kidhoko pi.
I don't know what language you're speaking, but Senator Olekina, it is important for me to mention, because the public might be following this conversation, that these are not personal opinions. They are drawn from the Auditor General's report. Senator Kabaka.
That is important, what you've said. And I keep on telling people of Machakos, I'm not, my oversight is not actuated by malice or anything or any other interest. But I always say I follow what is in the auditor's report. And I always challenge guys of Mosi. Anytime I go there, I always duplicate an exact photocopy of what, you know, I'm being interviewed on. Throughout, I don't state anything personal against the governor, but I'm telling you, at the end of the day, it is the auditor's report which will send the governor home, not Kabaka, because some of these these reports were done long before I became the senator. And not to cut my comments, umesahau kwamba kuna Mswahili hapa kutoka Pwani, mwalimu alikuwa mwalimu wa chuo cha Nairobi, na mkufunzi ungemuuliza hapa fanue, naona tuko na shida, like kamuzi iko hapa ya binadamu.
No, the last time she tried Swahili, she was thrown out by the speaker.
No, but this is a different session. She's a different session. This one, there is no punitive. Nikusaidia tu. Labda angeingia tusaidie. But it's very sad as a senator of Machakos if the governor is in the D class. And even yesterday, when he knew he was being grilled, if I may say today, you know, he sort of bribed the newspapers and, you know, indicated he was governor number 1 in Kenya. Cinema.
Well, there are persons with PhDs in political propaganda who will use social media to project themselves as being the best. But for us, we are not interested in that. For us, the mark sheet, the scorecard is what the Auditor General presents. And the Auditor General has told us that for 4 years in a row, the governor for Machakos has been a D student. That is what we deal with, not the other political propaganda.
Mr. Chairman, again, lastly, I've remembered, it would be very good for my people of Machakos. They are watching. They have called me. They are watching. They would like to know what happened. And I asked you that question sometime along the corridors of the Senate. What happened to accounts for financial year 2013, 2014, 14, 15? Were they ever tabled? Because that was not our time. I appreciate you are not the chair then. But of course, your office has a perpetual succession.
That is what, to clarify, that is a report coming to the House, where on the basis of the conclusion of the Auditor General for 4 financial years, which is a disclaimer, we had weighed the option. Do we tell the CS Treasury to stop transfer of funds to Machakos? And we felt that would hurt the innocent people of Machakos. And we felt that we would recommend to the House that the people responsible for Machakos for those 4 years, where Machakos has been given a disclaimer, are therefore not fit to hold public office. Bi Mzungumzishi.
Kata, Senate mlikata kufundishwa Kiswahili, kwa hivyo ketini na Kiswahili yenu. Chair, I just wanted to state that that's why these meetings are very important. The auditor goes through the report and gives the grade, and the Auditor General office could stop there. If they wanted, they would have said, this is it. But it gives the counties and the county executive a chance to come and project and to explain themselves and to give the records that they need to give and the relevant paper that they need to give, the relevant accounts from the county that they need to give. And that's all they have to do. And Chair, you will remember, as a friend of this committee, I've been a friend many times during your sessions, this is what happens. And there are many times where it could be just an audit query, and then when the governor comes, he comes with the relevant documentation, and then an explanation is done. If more documentation is needed, then that documentation is presented later on. If it is okay, if there's a misunderstanding, it is put on the table. These sessions are not frivolous. They're not just for the fun of it and just not for the sake of it. And in fact, the way I understand that this committee runs it, you have the Auditor Generals really presenting the papers. So how the governors decide it is the senators fighting with them, I don't know why they go into the angle of the senator, when it is clear that these are public records, public accounts that are coming, including also reports from the Controller of Budget, you know, really giving a view about how the money is getting spent within the counties. And this is what Mwananchi wants to be able to do. And therefore, the fact that the committee gives the opportunity for the governor to actually turn up, I think is a big strength of this committee. And when a governor doesn't turn out, I think various conclusions are made as a result of specifically that action that they take.
Finally, Professor, so that we then do not continue to use public resources on a...
Thank you, Chair.
null
I just want to make a very simple presentation that one of the biggest pillars of devolution is public participation. Yes, the governor as an executive has carried out his responsibilities. The Auditor General has carried out his responsibility. There is a report which has come out which is not favorable to the county of Machakos. And for the governor to be able to expose or come up and give some explanation in this committee was important so that the people of Machakos can be able to see where the problem is. Now, he has unfortunately avoided to appear and give an account in public what he ought to be doing in getting the public of Machakos that yes, he was given money, he has utilized it, and he can explain where it's been said he has misused the money. Now, unfortunately, that position is not available now. It can only be available through the summons. And what you've concluded, I think we should end up there, Chair, and hopefully that you listen to the summons. Thank you.
Thank you. To conclude, the governor shall appear before this committee on Monday, the 30th of September. The venue of that engagement shall be at the Machakos County Assembly. We hereby extend an invitation to members of the Public Accounts Committee of the Machakos County Assembly and members of the Public Accounts Committee of the neighboring counties, because we said we came here to share experiences, to share learnings, and to enable and strengthen public accounts committees to utilize the powers available to them in the Constitution and in statute. The meeting will start at 9:30 on Monday, the 30th of September at the Machakos County Assembly. The clerk of the Senate is hereby ordered to issue summons immediately for the governor of Machakos to appear. I want to send this message to the governors of the region that we call the Ukambani region. The reason why the Senate came to this region was not to come and pick fights and to witch hunt and to find fault. We came here to listen to the interests and concerns of the counties and their governments. We came as friends of the counties. We came as friends of the county assemblies. It is unfortunate that the Senate is here today, second day, and none of the governors from this region has so far honored our invitation to appear before the Public Accounts Committee. The governors of this region are giving devolution a bad name. If a governor is proud and confident of their achievement in office, there shouldn't be a problem in accounting. There shouldn't be a problem appearing before the Senate. Governors cannot need the Senate only when they want money, and then ignore the Senate when it comes to accountability. The governor of Machakos cannot rely on Senator Kabaka to pass the division of revenue and county allocation of revenue, and then disrespect Senator Kabaka when it comes to accountability. Governors cannot need county assemblies to pass their budgets and then ignore and belittle and disregard county assemblies when it comes to accountability. This Senate, even though Article 96 starts by saying we represent the interests of counties and their governments, but it goes further to say that the Senate shall oversight the national resources allocated to counties. Other committees will do the representation. Other committees will look at the interests of counties and their governments, but this committee will stick to its mandate of oversight. We shall do it without fear or favor. We shall do it without being intimidated. We shall do it without regard to a person's station in life. You can be a big person out there, but when it comes to accountability for public resources, we are all at the same level. You can be a dramatist and a big person in social media, but when it comes to accountability, the scorecard is what the Auditor General says. And I will finally ask the EACC that the affairs and the books of Machakos County that have had disclaimers for 4 continuous years must be looked into, so that the Senate does its job and the relevant body that deals with economic crimes can look into those books to establish whether the lack of disclosure is an effort to conceal certain misuse or abuse of public resources and public funds. There being no other business, before I adjourn this meeting to tomorrow 9:30, and tomorrow we'll be listening to the governor for Makueni and the Public Accounts Committee of Kitui, the Public Accounts Committee of Makueni. You are invited. I'm glad that the chair, Makueni, is already here with his team. Makueni is interesting because it is one of 2 counties that had an unqualified opinion. It was Makueni and Nyandarua. We want to find out what the governor of Makueni is doing right. Why is Makueni having an unqualified opinion, which is grade A, and the governor of Machakos is having disclaimers in a row, which is grade D? What is Makueni doing that Machakos is not doing? And you are neighbors. You share the same culture. You share so much in common. Why would one child born of the same mother be an A student and the other one be a D student? We'll be very keen on finding out what Makueni is doing right and whether that grade is also justified. We know that before Matiang'i there were A's. Now we want to confirm whether that is a Matiang'i grade or that is a Professor Ongeri grade.
But on a point of order, Chair. On a point of order, Chair, I think it's important for the public and also the people of Makueni to know that when it comes to an issue of disclaimer or unqualified, it is not really on the lawfulness of the public funds. It is mostly on how you've prepared your documentation, responded to the auditor. Maybe Makueni is very good in keeping their records, you know, and that's why they're getting their unqualified opinion. I think tomorrow is when we'll be able to separate facts from fiction, when we look deeply into these other issues of fiduciary responsibility. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and obviously Professor Ongeri has no comeback to that mischievous proposal, and therefore I will allow...
Chair, I would not want to say this, but by the time you attain the rank that you have given me, Professor, normally issues are very clear. And the grading is very clear. There are no shadows. When you say it's A, it's A. When you say it's E, it's E. And I think those of us who had the occasion, the privilege of teaching in the university, know that that's the level of scholarship that one is able to attain. And it's not for public show, but it's just for public humility.
Thank you, Professor. And it's always a pleasure and a great privilege to have the professor in this committee, owing to his not just public record, but also his personal achievements. And at some point, I was about to say that Senator Kabaka is overqualified to be in the Senate. He has an LLB, he has a CPA, he's doing a PhD, and he is, I don't know whether he has other things in divinity, because he talks a lot about theological issues. But until I met Professor, then I realized that we are not overqualified. If anyone was overqualified, it would be Professor Ongeri. But it's a pleasure having Professor around. Dr. Agnes Zani, a teacher, PhD. In Homa Bay, we say, kichwa moja, degree tatu. And that's a powerful woman. Now, let's conclude. And I wish to give an opportunity to, before the chair of Kitui speaks, and we'll have the final word, I get the chair of Makueni Public Accounts Committee. It's a pleasure having you around. It's good for us to partner in this particular manner. If you have any comments to make, I know Makueni is coming tomorrow, and then the chair of Kitui will have the final word before we adjourn.
Thank you, Chair. I must first start by appreciating the Senate Public Accounts Committee for the opportunity that you have given us before. We sat during the last interrogations for the County Executive of Makueni in Nairobi. When we came in 2017, the reports in Makueni were really not very nice, but with the support from the governor. In this way, CECs could not honor summons. They did not provide information in time. But we had a sitting with the governor and his county executive. And the governor compelled the ECM Finance and all other CECs that they must honor summons and invitations from the county assembly. So that is where we began. So in Makueni, we have no cases of information not provided. In Makueni, we do not have a case where a CEC does not appear before the committee. And therefore, I think it is through that kind of cooperation that currently in 2018-19 that we got an unqualified report. 17-18, sorry. And therefore, I believe that the issue of accountability, in as much as a county assembly, we are supposed to oversight the county executive, but we need to get a lot of cooperation from our county executives and the governors, Honorable Chair, so that the work becomes easy and we are also able to show the people, the electorate and the citizens that we have to do and we have to be accountable as county governments. Otherwise, thank you, and we are looking forward to have the governor tomorrow to come and explain and be interrogated by the committee. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And I personally feel happy when I find a county assembly that is functioning, and when I find a county executive that is functioning. A county executive where the Auditor General believes that the financial statements are properly stated, even though it does not cover the lawfulness and effectiveness of use of public resources. And I just want to confirm that, Chair, Public Accounts Committee, you are not in bed with the executive.
Yes, of course, we are not in bed with them. And our reports and recommendations have always been forwarded to your committee. And you can always confirm.
Thank you, Chairman. So at least you're sleeping in separate beds. Chairman Kitui.
Thank you, Chair, once again. I'll take a minute just to introduce a few colleagues, honorable members from both Kitui Assembly and Makueni. Just a minute to say your name and your committee. Then I'll conclude in a short while. I know time.
Okay, we do that quickly, just to recognize the honorable members who have joined us.
My name is Mheshimiwa Mary Ndumbu, a member of Budget Committee and an interested party. Yeah.
I'm Boniface Kasina, Chairman Budget and Appropriations Committee, Kitui County. Boniface Kasina, Chairman Budget and Appropriations Committee, Kitui County.
I hope you learned something from yesterday's Senate session on Kara, because having passed Kara, now you will have to recast the budget for Kitui to be in line with the allocations that we approved yesterday.
Absolutely, we did.
Okay, you're welcome, Chair.
We introduce ourselves.
Mheshimiwa, you introduced yourself. Yes, and you have been with us since yesterday, during the day, during the night, and today in the morning. Okay, those who are not there earlier.
My name is Mbula Mutul.
Oh, sorry.
I'm a member of Communication Committee. Thank you.
Karibu, Mheshimiwa. Any other member who had not introduced themselves?
Thank you, Chair. I am Charles Nyaga. I am not a member, I'm a staff of the Assembly of Kitui. I support the budget as the fiscal analyst. Thank you.
I'm glad you have a fiscal analyst. We are of the view that county assemblies must also have an assembly budget office. We have a parliamentary budget office. Budgeting is not child play. It is serious work. Honorable members sometimes are too busy to apply themselves to the critical thinking required in budget making. And we shall recommend, maybe by the end of our visit, that you develop something along the lines of a parliamentary budget office that then will provide support to the Budget and Appropriations Committee to make informed choices on the county budget.
My name is Kalonda Alfred, representing the people of Makindu Ward and the Chair Broadcasting in Makueni County Assembly.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'm Patrick Musiokimbevi, representing Kilungu people from Makueni County, member of the Committee of Public Accounts Investment Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Broadcasting, I am aware that the ICT Committee will be visiting KBC, Studio Mashinani. I don't know whether it's today or tomorrow. I hope you have been invited for that visit.
I saw the program, though I have not been communicated officially, but I'll be there. And the committee is also represented here.
Okay, because we are just about to adjourn, if you find time, please join that committee, because I believe that whatever KBC is doing here is perfectly within the domain of your committee.
I will, Chair.
Okay.
My name is Martina Ngusekimilu from Makueni County Assembly, a member of Budget and Appropriation Committee.
Asante sana, Mheshimiwa.
My name is Diana Mwendo, Makueni County Assembly, Vice Education Committee. Thank you.
Karibu. You might need to have a conversation. I don't know whether Senator Dr. Zani, you are in education? You might need to have a discussion on the side with Senator Dr. Zani to find ways of synergizing between your committee and the Senate Committee on Education. And I believe Professor Ongeri is also in the Education Committee. So hunt them down once we adjourn. Any other member?
I'm Elizabeth Mutinda, representing the people of Mubawake Community Ward, Makueni County, Vice Chair Committee on Agriculture. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mheshimiwa. I'm also in the Agriculture Committee. I represent the interest of fishermen in that committee. So we can have a side discussion.
Yeah, I think it's over. It's over.
Okay. Chair, final comments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, once again. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming for this very, very good session, although it did not work as expected. Remember yesterday, the last confirmation I sought from you, Chair, is whether we will be on today.
Proceed, Honorable Ochieng, Honorable Gogo. In fact, if you look at the mother's bill, it's more about pre-adoptive leave, leave before some adoption. It relates to that one particular point. But Honorable Ochieng, you have the floor. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. With what I've already said, I support. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Mugambi Gishoke. Honorable Abogo, give Honorable Mugambi the space. and the opportunity. Honorable Mogambi, do you want to speak to this? You have registered interest to speak to this.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I actually wanted to speak on the other one, the banking amendment bill. That's why I have just removed my card when this other one came in.
Very well, very well. Shall we have